Hello, and welcome to the Vibrant Systems YouTube channel Guided Meditations playlist. In this episode, we will be moving through a guided meditation to connect with water as an element to help us access our emotions. But before we dive into that, I want to take a moment to talk about how water has really shown up for me as an ally in learning emotional intelligence and building the skills I needed to show up in a way that is both authentic to myself, but also balanced. Water is, as I said, corresponded to our emotions. And there's a lot of really good reasons for that. Like water, our emotions are constantly in flow. Nothing will stay as it is. The highs will end, the lows will end, and even those middle in-between places will eventually end. We can create greater stability and habits and strategies that allow us to manage these highs and lows, but it's not something that's ever going to be stagnant. And we see in water, when it does become stagnant, there's actually a death of sorts that leads to lakes dying, that leads to diseases growing, that leads to ecosystems disappearing. So the flow of our emotions and the flow of water mirror one another in a very deep way. Like water too, our emotions bring us to life. And if you're someone who's experienced depression in the past or at some point in your life, or perhaps even right now, perhaps you will resonate with the fact that one of the indicators of depression is actually apathy, numbness, not feeling our emotions, because we probably have reached a point where our emotions are too overwhelming. And so our nervous systems and our body's response is to just shut it all out. Like an ecosystem, without our emotions, we enter a sort of drought. We watch a lot of the things around us that used to bring us joy die or disappear. And the same thing happens to landscapes when there's a sudden loss of water. When a dam is built that does not take into account the ecosystems it's affecting, that disrupts those ecosystems, those circles of life. And for me, this is something that I'm speaking very much from my own personal experience and my own path, because I have been in situations where I was in a community that in a way led me to silence a lot of what I really cared about. Care being the operative word here. My values for me, living in alignment with my values for me, is intrinsically tied up with my emotional well-being. Because when I was in this community in the past, when I was with my ex, like I said, I self-silenced. I stopped living in alignment with my values because the community he was a part of was not one that was aligned to me. And for a number of reasons, I was at a point in my life where the emotional response to rejection was more immediately painful. And I was scared of that. And so I chose instead to disconnect from the emotions that told me I was living in alignment with my values. And over time, this actually led me to feel very numb and lost and apathetic. And it was only in leaving that relationship and reconnecting to my values to what makes my heart sing, what brings me joy, what brings me passionate energy, that I was able to recognize the ways that I had more or less put myself into an emotional drought in that relationship. And that had an enduring effect on how I showed up for a long time. As I've been working with my emotions over the past 2 years, with water as a guide for this, I've really learned that yes, there are still emotional challenges and overwhelming moments that come from choosing to align to my values or choosing to make a difficult choice, basically. Those emotions won't ever go away. But I'm at a point now where I'm not so scared of those big emotions, of those painful emotions, that I don't make a choice that is ultimately in alignment for me. Or rather, I'm not scared, I'm not fearful, and so I have stopped making a choice that denies my values. And this is just one way that building up this emotional intelligence and resilience can really serve us in all areas of our life, because we're always going to have tough choices to make. And making a choice solely based on the emotions we aren't ready to feel or don't feel capable of feeling, making a choice based on that can lead to a lot of heartache in the long term. And so in this meditation, if you're someone who has found yourself at a point where you feel disconnected from your emotions, you feel apathetic, or like there's a dam between the emotions you know should be there and what you're actually feeling, this meditation is for you to help you guide through the releasing of that dam. And this is also the first lesson in the second module of my video course, Elements of Self. If you resonate with that, you can head over to vibrantsystems.ca. I'll throw the link below. You can head over there and access the full course, which gives you not only all 4 lessons of water and meditations to go with that, but also the other elements. So that's earth, water, air, and fire, and their correspondences to our holistic well-being and sense of balance. So if you find you resonate with this video, I invite you to check out that video course. It's something I'm very proud of and pulled a lot from my own personal experience, pulled deeply from the lessons that I learned from the 4 elements when I started doing this work. So without further ado, I will begin the meditation. You may want to grab a glass of water, pause this video to invoke the water element. You may also want to surround yourself with symbols such as turtles. I am wearing turtle earrings and a turtle bracelet. I also have a beautiful and adorable frog candle holder that my mother thrifted for me. And for those who enjoy sensory elements to their meditation, I'm using juniper as a way to both cleanse my space and create a sense of clarity. It's an herb very commonly used, herb tree, very commonly used in Europe for smoke cleansing. So if you're curious about an alternative to sage that isn't culturally appropriative, juniper is an excellent example. That grows really well in Alberta, where I live. So, with that being said, I invite you to take a deep breath in and exhale. As you breathe, I invite you to bring your awareness to your body, not just the stability and structure of your bones or your contact with the earth beneath you, but also to the flow of your breath and of your blood in your veins. Water is within us. And the lessons that this element carries are there for you to access at any time. When the natural flow of water is disrupted, whether by a dam or a long-term shift in climate, it has an immediate and significant impact on the ecosystems that water and those patterns existed in. For example, if a dam is created in an ecosystem without recognizing the need of a flow of that river to support, for example, salmon or other animals, it can have catastrophic effects on that ecosystem. Likewise, we're often taught to create a dam against our emotions. This dam could be a belief that our emotions are unprofessional or an overreaction. It can be built on the voices that tell us we're too sensitive, or that it wasn't a big deal. And when this dam shows up, eventually we begin to feel like we cannot trust our feelings at all. And so more and more of our feelings are caught by this dam. And I want you now to envision this dam in your mind. And for some of you, you may hold a picture. For others, this dam may be a thought or an idea. And still some of us might just feel the dam within ourselves, in our bodies. There is no wrong way to hold this image. You and I are standing on the dry side of the dam. Notice the feeling of the dry, dusty riverbed beneath your feet. Notice these stunted trees and bushes around you. Notice the lack of animals or wildlife that rely on this flow of our emotions to survive. You may feel that it is easy to create a metaphor of these animals or plants representing things like your hobbies or your passions, because our emotional flow is often what keeps these passions alive. And if you're at a point in your life where things that once brought you joy no longer do, that is represented by this metaphor of the dry, parched landscape around us. Now notice the dam ahead of you. Maybe it's made out of cement, perhaps it's just out of logs or another material. But behind this dam, you see the weight and immenseness of water, or your emotions, pushing against that dam. Knowing that there is this much weight behind that wall can feel overwhelming and potentially frightening. So I invite you to root back into your body, root back into the solidity of your bones, and really, as you breathe, allow yourself to drop an anchor into the land, the earth supporting you. You are strong enough to withstand the flow of the emotions behind this dam. And as you begin to root into the earth beneath you, into the dry riverbed, as you begin to anchor into your breath, you notice a crack has appeared in the dam, and through this crack, water is starting to flow down the wall and onto the dry riverbed. The land immediately receives this water, absorbs it. In your body, as you notice this flow beginning, I invite you to pay attention. What sensations or emotions are you feeling? Is it possible to name what those emotions are? If you can't, it's okay. Honoring the emergence of these emotions with our presence allows us to build up a familiarity and to let them flow as they always were intended to. We do not need to justify whether these emotions are right or wrong. We do not need to attach these emotions to a story. Simply breathe and sit in your body, allowing the physical sensations of these emotions to flow through you. And as you do this, you notice the crack in the dam widening, and more water begins to pour out, creating streams on this dry riverbed, making their way towards you. Soon you feel the cool, refreshing water swirling around your toes and the soles of your feet, rising until you can feel the pressure of this water and these emotions swirling around your ankles. Remember, you are anchored and you are safe. This release of emotions will not drag you away, will not knock you off your feet. Continue to breathe. Continue to feel the sensations in your body that are asking to be felt. Maybe this is anger, frustration, betrayal. Maybe this is grief or sadness. Maybe it's fear. A fear of being too much. And notice too, as these emotions begin to flow, that there are positive glimmers of emotions in this as well. These glimmers, the joy, the passion, start to spread out into the environment around you, and you visibly notice the trees perk up with the introduction of this moisture that they've been so desperately craving. When you are ready, I invite you to bring the dam down. Maybe you use your hands. Maybe you let your mind open and it crumbles before you. Maybe it is the weight of the emotions begging to be released. But when you are ready, that water flows free and you remain anchored even through the full force of this release. You might notice shaking, or tears, or an ache in your throat. You might feel heat or cold, and know that any experience at this moment is natural and normal. You are so brave for allowing this dam to burst, allowing the flow of these emotions through your body, because it is overwhelming, and that overwhelm can create so much fear and resistance. And you have made the conscious choice to let that resistance go. In the landscape around you, the riverbed that is eager to allow this flood of water back into its ancient path, the trees and the bushes, the animals are rejoicing. Because in this release of resistance, you have also released life force back into the landscape of your body. And this is so greatly appreciated and loved by the world around you. When you are ready, I invite you to open your eyes. This is an incredibly powerful meditation, and it may be one you want to return to over time. For some of us, the entirety of the dam does not come down in one sitting. I know for myself, it took continued willingness to show up for myself in this way. So even if you did not feel that the dam burst or the flood of the emotions that wanted to come out in this moment, know that you have the opportunity to return and invite that release at another time and another day. And each time you return to this, you will notice a different experience. And the ecosystem around you, the ecosystem of your body, of your well-being, will be different too. Thank you for joining me in this meditation. You may also want to check out my Working with the Earth Element meditation. I will include it below. Subscribe for more content like this, and let's make your story a vibrant one.